I'm gonna say it. Mexican 9 out of 10. So, good play. Good play, bro. I haven't seen this hand, but I was at the table, so I do remember it. Roughly. So let's have a look. So this is 10k NL. We've got Bit Too Easy, Zaruba, and Mr. Lee. 3 usual suspects. We've also got K-Rab, who is an old school heads up reg who plays from time to time. So I don't really know much about his 6-max game, but he's a heads up player, so you know he will mix things up, probably be quite loose. But who knows? Some heads up players are actually very tight in 6-max, so don't know too much about the guy. So let's see what happens. I raised 225 in the cutoff and Bit Too Easy flats. So he's mostly representing medium strength hands, right? Hands like maybe Queen 10 suited or pocket 7s or like Ace Jack. And K-Rub squeezes. I fold in between. So Bit Too Easy calls here against this somewhat small squeeze of 12 big blinds, probably representing some kind of pair or suited hand. And K-Rep checks in this spot. Some people bet their whole range here because they think, well, they have a set advantage and an ace-king advantage, and they don't have bad hands like pocket 5s like Bit Too Easy might, because he just called the squeeze. Some people bet range, some people don't, so yeah, K-Rep decides to mix it up, which is fine. Bit Too Easy is going to stab quite carefully here, right? Because he knows that K-Rep can have hands like kings or king jack or jack 10, or even hands like aces sometimes. So he's going to be on the careful side. But knowing Bit Too Easy, he is not careful. He bets about a third of the pot. Even though he bets small, he's not betting that thinly, right? He's probably only betting a good ace or better. Maybe checks him behind sometimes as well, as he should. So the Cookie Monster bets 870 cookies. And gets dealt a 3 turn. This 3 doesn't really improve anybody. If anything, maybe K-Rab if he squeezed like ace 3 suited occasionally, but that's not much to worry about. Bit Too Easy checks behind. He's had enough. So you would think that he doesn't have that strong of a range here, right? Because if he had a really good hand, why is he not betting? So maybe he's just trying to trap with a tricky line, but most of the time you would expect him to bet. So he could still have a hand like maybe ace queen or ace 10. Maybe he checks behind pocket 8s. That's possible too. The queen is a solid card for both. K-Rap can have ace queen, maybe queens. Maybe he has king 10 sometimes or queen jack. So, but Bit Too Easy can have some of those hands as well. So pretty tricky card for both of them. And wow, K-Rab goes all in, which is quite aggressive. You know, he doesn't care that Bit Too Easy might have like 10-9 or king 10 or, you know, ace queen. He just goes all in. And Bit Too Easy calls with, ooh, 10 unsuited. That's a pretty dirty river, right? So Bit Too Easy is thinking on the turn. He doesn't want to get shoved on. He doesn't expect too many folds, so he just checks behind, tries to get the free card, and he gets the ultimate free cards because K-Rab has 2 pair. And K-Rab probably thinks that Bit Too Easy will call him with hands like ace 10 maybe, or, you know, maybe some kind of rivered king-queen type of hand. So how do we rate these plays? No rating for me because I just raised and folded. K-Rab, 6 out of 10, and I'll give Bit Too Easy 7.5 out of 10. So not a bad hand by any means. What do you guys think? Game's getting pretty deep. Zaruba's got the big stack. Bit Too Easy has a pretty big one too. Poker stack, I mean. So he opens to 221, and Mr. Ross the boss, makes it 773 and 50 cents. Normal sizing. So Bit Too Easy calls here, and his range will be quite tight while doing that because Ross is 3-betting a pretty tight range here, so Bit Too Easy has to be careful out of position, right? Ross goes for a 3rd pot bet. On this board, which is quite scary because Bit Too Easy can definitely have some flushes and some straights and some sets and all that kind of good stuff. And he check raises quite large. And Ross calls, okay. Now Easy goes for the small bet, saying that I'm a little bit afraid of the queen, I'm a little bit afraid of the flush, but I've got a hand that's good enough to bet. By the way, is that Eddie Griffin, his avatar? Easy now checks, so it's kind of strange as to what he's got. He could have something like a low flush and he doesn't want to put any more money in. Maybe he's got a straight. He could just be trapping with a hand like a full house, of course. Hoping that Ross puts in some more money. Ross goes for the small bet, trying to target a straight. And he shows up with pocket jacks. So I'm not sure what Easy had. I would guess he had something like 7-8 of spades, maybe. That's possible. But we'll never know. As for their plays, Ross 3-bets pre-flop, which is good. C-bets the flop, which is good. Calls a check raise, calls turn. You know, obviously he's not ahead that often, but he could be sometimes, and he's getting good pot odds, and they're deep. And on the river, he decides to go small, which seems fine as well. Easy's play I like a bit less, but we don't know what he has, so we can't really rate it. So I'll give Ross an 8 out of 10. Limp by Novoskos, which I don't generally recommend, but he's got 20 grand in front of him, so he's got some money to gamble with, right? Mexican completes here, probably with quite a weak range because he's getting such a great price. But then again, he's out of position to two players, right? And Novoskos could still be trapping him, so he cannot just limp any shitty hand. Gets checked through, and Novoskos can be pretty aggressive, which he is, with a pot-sized bet. Mexican calls, so he probably has a queen, an ace, or a flush draw most of the time. Maybe has hand like king 10 sometimes. That's not a bad card because it's now it's less likely that Novoskos has hands like an ace or ace queen, etc. If Mexican has an ace himself, he now has some outs against pocket queens, pocket deuces. So this is a little bit strange, right? On the flop, he's saying, fuck you guys, I limped a good hand, I'm bombing it. Now on the turn, his hand is getting even better. And now he only bets half pot. So I don't know what that means. That could just still be a trap. That could be in like kings or a queen. Could be absolutely nothing, like 5-4 offsuit. Could be anything. And now he pots again, right? So it's a bit confusing. Like on the flop, he's got the nuts. On the turn, he's got like a decent hand. And now he's got the nuts again. So yeah, very confusing. Mexican check raise is really big. So he's basically saying that he limped a hand like deuces, or he has a hand like ace-6. Maybe he's got a counterfeit queen-6 or something like that, or he's just bluffing with a queen. Because if he had an ace, he would just call the river, right? So he's representing a full house, basically. And what do you know? Mexican somehow has the ace-6. So I think his hand was quite well played. The sizing on the river was very large, but that could be fine. You know, if he thinks that Novoskos is not capable of folding his good hands. So I don't mind that. So I think Mexicans play here. The flop call is good. The turn call is good. River check raise size. A little bit on the large side. But again, this could be correct. So I'm going to say it. Mexican 9 out of 10. So good play. Good play, bro. Have to be fair, right? A6 fine over limp. I mean, it's not as good as it looks. It looks like an easy call, right? I mean, great pot odds, having an ace, but your hand doesn't play so well out of position unless you get exactly this run out. So I think it's very close, but winning slightly. Also, the rake's quite low, so you don't really get punished as soon as both guys check, or as soon as Ross checks. Yeah, it's fun. The A6 is it's fine. The limp is worse than it looks, but it's I think it's winning. I think Mexican played his hand well overall. Do you think Mexican is folding to a shove? How deep were they? 14 deep? Maybe. The thing is, Novoskos, limps and then like half pot, pots it, and Mexican check raise is huge, and then he shoves. So he's representing a really strong hand, right? He's representing ace-queen, basically. So unless Mexican thinks that he beats a bluff or queens, he could maybe fall in the fold. A good player should at least think about folding. But I wouldn't blame him if he called. I think fold might be the right play. Depends so much on the situation, right? Like, what do you think of this player? It really depends.